Truth and karma always find a way. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore, and look, I know a lot of you have issues with Michael Jackson based on what the media has informed you. But I beg of you, if your decision is being made these days because of that HBO documentary, Leaving Neverland, do a little bit more homework, please. In fact, you can go over to Hugging the Cactus, my other channel, which I'll be posting some more content about this subject soon. But you can go over there and actually watch an interview I did with Taj Jackson, Michael's nephew. Now, Taj is a really good person who opened up about a lot of things. He let me ask anything I wanted about his uncle. No stone unturned and nothing he was afraid to talk about. And we talked a lot in depth about Leaving Neverland, the HBO documentary, which is not a documentary. It's a hit piece. It's a one-sided biased piece that really doesn't tell you the full story. It's telling you a narrative that they want to tell you, just to expose and be more salacious. And it's really awful and unfair, given that Michael can no longer defend himself, that this is now how he's been canceled. When the reality is, back then when all this happened, there's a lot more to the story that you all need to know. He also talked about with me just sort of disputing Michael Jackson facts, sort of common themes and accusations that have been out there that he went on to disprove, because Taj was there, and Taj himself has some... I had to be careful of my keywords here on YouTube. In fact, please, YouTube human reviewer, I'm not talking about anything that goes against my guidelines, so please be fair. In fact, let's see if YouTube's being fair. Do you see an ad? That's always how you tell, and you're also supporting the channel, so thank you. But Taj goes in and talks about some of the things that you don't like, seemingly don't like Michael about, to disprove and talk about it. The reality is, Michael loved children, and he actually just loved children in that he could never harm a child. And the more you talk to people who knew him, who were really there, and the more that you look at the cases, you start to seem that it's not exactly how the media wanted you to believe. And the reality is, when Michael died, we all mourned him and celebrated his music. It wasn't until Leaving Neverland came out and HBO decided to torch his career in death that now we all thought, oh yeah, we should believe this. And that's what the problem is. So now, after all that's already been a problem, now the biggest issue that to me was always sort of the thing that made me go, was that Living with Michael Jackson documentary by Martin Bashir. Now, this came out, I think it was 2003, I believe is when Living with, it dropped in 2003 in the UK and US, February 2003. And this interview, if you remember it, well, it turned a lot of heads because there were certain sound bites that Martin Bashir focused on so specifically that it was sort of hard to be like, whoa, wait, what? He did what? And I got to be specific. I can't talk about the specifics. You guys hopefully know what I'm talking about. But the reality is, Martin Bashir apparently wasn't being honest with us. He had his own narrative to achieve because Martin Bashir is now under investigation and proving to be very untrustworthy journalist, an unethical journalist. He's now apologized, but is denying he harmed Princess Diana in his infamous interview with Diana, which both he and the BBC have now been proven to be guilty in doing unethical journalism to score that interview and get her trust. There's a lot more to the story that I'm sure we're going to be hearing. And he's trying to defend himself, saying, oh, she would have done the thing anyway. Just because we forged some documents doesn't mean anything, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is, no, he's under a serious amount of pressure. In fact, it's not just Diana. Now Sarah Palin's coming out also talking about his unethical reporting and how he used things against her as well, his deceitfulness. But right now, it's Michael Jackson's own family that is out for blood, coming back to Martin Bashir because they say this interview was really where it all turned. It was all where the narrative shifted because of Martin Bashir, because of his unethicalness, because of his lies. And one will forget that even back in 2003, this was up for debate. Back in the UK, people were actually saying that there was a lot of backlash of Martin Bashir because they're like, well, this doesn't seem fair. Why was it only focused on this? There was a lot more sort of forgiveness to Michael in the UK than there was in the US. And beyond that, there were even pieces that were done to show the sketchy stuff and manipulative editing, as Taj here sort of shows, the deceitful moves that Martin Bashir used to sort of get this more salacious, to get the views. So I want to share this clip that Taj put out there because, look, if you don't believe me, look at this. Because currently, Michael Jackson's family is starting to sue Martin Bashir for this. They're saying he used the interview with Princess Diana to get this interview with Michael Jackson. In fact, Uri Geller, this person who basically introduced Bashir to Jackson, says the super smooth journalist used his Dye connections to access Jackson. In fact, apparently there was some handwritten letter from Dye, allegedly Princess Diana, that really was sort of what sort of helped him get this interview. And so there's a lot of questions as to, well, was he duping Michael as well? Was he there to sort of dupe Michael and use unethical practices to get, a narrative that he wanted out of this story and catch some things that, granted, need some more explanation? And we talk about in that interview with Taj. So bear with me. We do talk about it. But why did we only focus on that? What was his intention? Was there a biased intent before he even went in there? And so Taj has receipts. I love Taj because he always drops receipts. So here's a clip that the Jackson fans out there are amazing because they don't just stand Michael. They drop evidence. There's a lot of it. In fact, I've called it out. Check out Square One documentary if you really want to get a lot more information about the accusers and everything else. But let's look at this
now, as you may have heard,
Mari Povich piece that was done after Martin Bashir's interview to sort of show why that piece was so unfair.
In several recent news stories, one of Michael Jackson's prime complaints about the reporting featured in Martin Bashir's documentary and subsequent interviews with the press was his lack of objectivity. As we've already seen, some of Mr. Bashir's comments that made the air appear to be quite different than opinions he expressed in Jackson's behind-the-scenes footage.
So this is important. So they're talking about
Mr. Bashir's.
They're talking about like what Bashir said in the documentary versus what he was saying around Michael and the family during the time versus what he actually says in the edit to make it more malicious and awful.
On-air comment was, one of the most disturbing things is the fact that a lot of disadvantaged children go to Neverland. It's a dangerous place for a vulnerable child to be. But what he said behind the scenes was this.
I was here yesterday and I saw it, and it's nothing short of a spiritually kind thing.
Let's stop there for a second. That's effed up. So his intent there was to come in, basically gain his trust, lie to him, say basically the truth, and then once he figured out what footage he gets, change it and say whatever narrative he wants. That's not okay, guys. That's awful. That's exactly what Leaving Neverland did as well. Is the reality of just like, look, don't say one thing and then go in there and then just completely, all right, let's use it. And I mean, that's what the media does. This is exactly proof of what the media does. And some will say, well, no, but it's editing. You should know better. Sure, you should know better, I guess. Do more homework. However, when you're told one thing and you're filming and you grant the permission and you're told you're going to get the cut and then you don't get any of those things, something's fishy. Someone behind the scenes beyond just Martin Bashir had to have been involved to know, okay, well, what was the goal here? What did you really want to do? You wanted to take down Michael.
This comment about Michael's method of raising children was included on Bashir's special. They are restricted. They are overly protected. I was angry at the way his children were made to suffer. But this was not.
Your relationship with your children is spectacular. And in fact, it almost makes me weep when I see you with them.
It makes me weep when I see you with them. What a scumbag this guy was. This guy's proving, between what he did to Palin, Diana, Michael, this guy can't be trusted for a second. Everything he's saying is basically what he wants to trick you with. Total two-faced, total just lying to sort of get all this. He's going in there to play nice and then find ways to like paint it in a negative. See, look what he's doing. I'm sorry, I got a massive issue with this.
Another of Jackson's complaints about the documentary is the non-inclusion of certain statements that he feels are pertinent to objective reporting.
Like when Bashir devoted almost 8 minutes to the abuse.
So I gotta be careful. Talk about his father, how his father, wasn't the nicest dad. And it spends 8 minutes on it talking about it. But Michael makes a point of saying he was a genius. And he loved him. It was a complicated relationship with his father. But Martin Bashir didn't want to put that part in it. He wanted to sort of paint a story that's why Michael did this. He wants to create not only the malicious narrative, but then build his own intent to sort of tell you and make you think, oh, yeah. I mean, and this was like an hour or two interview that he did. Imagine how that 4-hour HBO piece was doing when clearly the director's intent was to just become to basically Me Too another celebrity.
The
he's a genius. The man is a genius.
On Michael's taking his children to the zoo, Bashir says it was no kind of trip for two young children, and everyone
remember
could see
that.
it, but Jackson himself. But what you don't hear is Michael's response.
I go to the zoo all the time. I go usually when they close it down. And they told us this would be closed down.
They told us it would be closed down. So he's acknowledging we shouldn't have been there. They told us it was closed. We showed up and it wasn't closed. And Martin cuts that part out of the video. Why? Because he wants to show Jackson as a terrible father. How is this honest? How is this telling you the truth?
And as far as probing for the truth about Michael's changing appearance, the subject of vitiligo was virtually ignored.
First of all, vitiligo, the skin disorder, it's proven now. When he died, they did the blood work and it's on his certificate or whatever. Like, that's been proven.
And the severe burns and reconstructive surgery were never mentioned at all.
Can we get over this plastic surgery garbage? This is tabloid stuff. Well, you're beyond this.
So look, there's so much more. This article, as it goes, breaks it all down. I mean, I don't know legally what they have the right to do, but Taj writes, Bashir's manipulated footage and unethical journalism is one of the reasons my uncle's not here today. That trial broke him. Shame on those people who provided cover for Bashir. Shame on those who rewarded him. My family deserves an investigation and an apology too. Bashir created a fake narrative about my brother, which becomes crystal clear when you view the outtakes Bashir kept secret. He used Michael's trust and friendship with Diana to get the interview, manipulated Michael throughout the interview, then deceptively edited the footage. And when you think, look, you got to, and again, here's Geller who introduces, what convinced me to introduce him to Michael was a letter he pulled out of his pocket. It folded to there 2 or 3 times with a logo, and it said it was from Princess Diana writing to him about how happy she was with the interview. I had felt unease, but this was Diana's letter that won my feelings over. He was a super smooth operator. I regret that terrible introduction. It was the beginning of, I believe, Michael's spiral downwards. The family is now considering legal action. They believe ultimately that Bashir's betrayal of Michael and lies he spun destroyed his career. And look, I just get sad when I see this. And that's why I wanted to do this story, because this is what they do. This is what the media does all the time. It's happening all the time. There's another case I was going to try. I'm going to need to do more research on this, and I may go do this over at Hugging the Cactus. But this actor, I don't know a ton about this, but this actor, Craig McLaughlin, was accused in 2014, I believe it was. He was vindicated and proven, he was not guilty into this past December. And the footage in the documentary, in the sort of interviews, and they were trying to take this guy down, you can see the journalists coaching answers and sort of feeding them stuff. And now to the credit of the journalists, they're saying, well, no, that's what news does. It always sort of tries to take comments that were already said and cut them down. But no. They're playing defense now. Whereas when you watch these clips and you see what the journalists were doing, there's even a point where one of the producers is like, it's our job. We want to get him fired. And it's like, this is biased journalism. When journalists have an opinion set before they've even done the story, well, then nothing you're reading is true. I mean, it's honest, because it's all biased reporting that isn't giving you the full story. And so what Martin Bashir did, I truly believe, was the beginning of the end for Michael. Because look, there were trials, there were accusations, but then he was, he pushed through those. Things got crazier after that. Accusations continued, and then it was the sort of the sound bites out of context and the focus of around the malicious intent that really painted the picture for Michael. When the reality was, there's no proof of it. There's no proof of it. They had every opportunity for people to come forward or to really charge him. And the reality of the matter is, which a lot of people don't want to go do the homework and read it, they couldn't prove anything because nothing happened. There was just a lot of parents who wanted a lot of money and took a lot of money. I'm sorry, if my kid was in a situation like that, and I ask you if you're a parent as well, and something like that terribly happens to your child, are you taking the money, or are you going to see that trial through? Because I'll tell you, I don't care about the money in that instance. I want justice if I believe that actually happened. And so the reality is, everybody took the money. It became clear and clear that they just wanted the money. And to me, that's a huge red flag. Look, there's so much to these cases, and the fact of the matter is, I wholeheartedly agree. Martin Bashir, they should do an investigation on this. How much was incorrect? How much scheming, sneakery, lying, deceitfulness was behind the scenes to craft this narrative to take Michael Jackson down? Who else was involved? Who knew when they edited the footage? Who was producing that piece besides just Martin that was really sort of creating this? Was the network behind it? Because honestly, there should be damages. This is defamation in my eyes completely, because they're creating these lies as to Martin Bashir's feelings as a journalist being there witnessing it, when the reality is that's not what he was feeling at all. He was just trying to make it more salacious for all of you. And when you go back and you remember that interview, and again, I implore you, go check out Taj's interview. I talk more specifically, but that one's already demonetized. You can go learn about it there. I'm trying to keep this one monetized. In fact, is YouTube suppressing it? Did you see an ad there? Tell me. The fact of the matter is that interview was the beginning of the end because of the way it was sort of taken out of context and written around it. And I firmly believe, while there should have been that question was valid and there was sort of still a question there, it didn't mean that everything else was true. It just didn't. It just meant Michael was weird. And the reality is Michael was weird. I'm never going to doubt that Michael didn't have some weird qualities. But he was still a fantastic musician, and I do believe absolutely adored children to the fact that he would never, ever hurt a child. And I've spoken to several people who have known him, not just family members. People, you can go look, do the homework. People who worked with him, his staff, etc. They are like, it's impossible. This would never have happened. And he has a lot of support still. People out there that will support him because they know, they're like, look, I knew Michael. There's no way he did that. And so what are we supposed to just believe? Well, no, he did. Even though nothing was ever criminally charged. 2 liars make an HBO documentary made by Oprah, who is also a very unethical journalist. Oprah, I learned, did a lot of similar practices that Martin Bashir did, used sort of to get into the door to get the interview, and then completely changed gears and lied and stole to get sort of the ratings. She was a snake. So guys, the reality of this, you got to be careful what you hear out there. And that's why it's important to actually, was he tried? Were there charges? Well, he was tried and there were no charges and no one could prove anything. So at the end of the day, the guy's dead. And at this point, he can't defend himself. Why are we still defaming him? For what? So we're never supposed to listen. They've canceled his Simpson episode. That breaks my heart. What a great episode that was. Happy birthday, Lisa. It's just sad the world we live in, because look, you can still make up your mind. You can not listen if you don't want to, but we should still have the choice, because there's no actual proof except from 2 people's accusations, which aren't fully honest, because that documentary does not tell you the full truth. Go do your homework. But I'm curious what you guys think. I want to hear your thoughts down below. Please let me know in the comments. Also, if you haven't already subscribed, please do hit that bell for all alerts, smash that like button, and tell me your thoughts on this subject. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for more coverage here on Popcorned Planet. Hugging the Cactus is there as well if you want to click over there to watch the Taj interviews. Thanks, everybody.